everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to get started here. So my name is Michael Lawrence, and I'm with Redstone. I work doing marketing and sales here at Redstone. Today we're going to be talking about custom training and establishing a path to self-sufficiency for your company. You know, if you're familiar with WebCenter, that's probably why you're on this call today, and you might need some training. As you know, WebCenter is quite a large investment, and because of that, we want to get the most out of our investment. We don't buy it not to use it, so we want to increase that ROI, and one of the ways to do that is to leverage the tool that you've purchased. Now, WebCenter is not the only software solution out there. I mean, many software solutions you use in your personal daily life, you're probably only using about 10 to 20% of what it's actually capable of. So that's where custom training comes in, and it helps your organization achieve its full potential use of the solution. So today, to set the stage a little bit, we're going to build some credibility with our listeners today. We're going to set the stage by going over some of our traditional training practices. We're going to go over some of our value propositions, what makes us unique in our 3T methodology, how we customize curriculum, and what our past results are. That's what we're all after is results. It's one thing for us to tell you about our custom training solutions and services, but it's another to show you the results of past participants and trainees. So just a brief overview on Redstone, and like I said, setting that stage and building that credibility. We've been in the business for about 20 years. It dates back to the Stellant years. We're involved in the public sector as well as in the private sector. We're a system integrator and value-added reseller. So training isn't the only thing that we do, but it was one of the pillars early on in Redstone, and it continues to be one of the pillars of our business today. So we pride ourselves. We don't just provide training to other companies. We also train our internal staff, and that allows us to actually be better trainers. So you can tell, technical competency. We train all of our developers on Java, project management, professional certifications, and all of the specializations you see there on the right side under our Platinum Partner logo. These are just some of the solutions that we provide training on, but we also provide custom training to solutions that work with WebCenter, not just on it, such as Java, for example. And then lastly, we're going to go into a little bit more in depth here in a few slides, is the Oracle Certified Training Delivery Partner and what it means for Redstone to be one of those partners as well as the Platinum Partner. So speaking today, myself, Michael Lawrence, I'll be the MC. John Klein is also with us today. John Klein is one of our owners and founders of Redstone. John Klein's been in the industry for over 25 years, also dates back to the Stellant days. So I'm going to transition to John here, and John's going to tell us a little bit more about training and customization and how that leads to the success and the self-sufficiency that we're all trying to achieve within our organizations.
Thank you, Michael. The goal of today's webcast is to provide information on both traditional and custom training approaches so that each and every one of the people on the webcast today is provided enough detail for each of you to make an educated decision on preferred type of training and give you some insight as to what you might look for in the selection of a training provider.
Thank you, John. So first, we're going to continue to set the stage and build this credibility for a couple more slides before we get too far into the custom training. And one of the ways we're going to do that is we're going to talk about our traditional training practice, what it means to be a certified training delivery partner, and what are some pros and cons of traditional training, and then that's going to segue into the value proposition for custom training. So, John, what does it mean for Redstone to be a certified training delivery partner, and what does it mean in general for Oracle partners and customers?
Since our inception, we have been focused on providing a training offering not generally found in the marketplace. We forged our own way, which was certainly recognized by our clients and ultimately by Oracle. As we work to establish a reputation for technical competence, the Oracle digital experience solutions that we learned, were certified on, and implemented continued to grow. And as our status within Oracle changed from gold to platinum partner, Oracle then requested that we consider becoming a certified training delivery partner. As a certified training delivery partner for Oracle, we teach traditional classes utilizing materials developed by Oracle University instructors. The material has been approved by Oracle, and we have been approved by Oracle to teach those classes.
So how many certified training delivery partners do you say are out there in the industry today, John?
You know, Michael, I'm not exactly sure. What I do know is from an Oracle Platinum partner perspective, there is about 15% of partners that become Platinum in North America, and only about 8% of partners worldwide achieve the Platinum status. What were you telling me, Michael, about the number of locations that provide Oracle training around North America? Was that number in the 20s?
Yes, there are, in addition to the certified training delivery partners, there's another training certification out there for approved education centers, which are actual locations where they serve as schools or minor universities for Oracle training, and there is about 20 to 30 in the United States. Now, the difference is a certified training delivery partner has practices other than training, and more, they're in the services industry, they're in the sales industry as well. There isn't an actual number on the certified training delivery partners, but you can expect it's in the same, it's closer to the approved education center number than it is the total number of partners out there. So I think it does provide quite a bit of value to our customers when they're looking at potential training providers. So, John, we talked about some traditional training. So what are the pros? Why might some people or industries find this solution to fit their needs? What's the value here for traditional training?
Yeah, let's start first with pros. In the case of the Oracle curriculum that we have access to, what's nice about that is the curriculum already exists. Number two, it's potentially cost effective, and what I mean by that is a larger class size can typically be accommodated with traditional materials. And we'll get into that a little bit later in terms of what we feel is a ideal class size for a custom class. Here we don't need to reinvent the wheel on the curriculum. More classes can typically be delivered in a shorter amount of time as the material becomes quite well known by our instructors quite quickly. This type of training, traditional training, establishes a baseline of knowledge. And generally what that means to us is it provides the foundational knowledge that a company who might be new to the technology certainly wants to learn. We talk a lot, a lot of times about building the foundation. When you build a house, you generally start with the basement, and you have to erect a solid foundation before you then build on top of that. And traditional training provides that most adeptly.
So that sounds all great. Are there going to be any pitfalls here do we want to cover some of these where it may fall short, and then maybe talk about how it depends on what your specific needs are. Maybe some of these cons don't apply to you, and maybe some of them do, and the balance between the pros and cons here in making that decision.
I think the audience can certainly weigh in on their own. These are some things that clients have told us as we've conducted traditional training engagements. What we seem to see a lot is where maybe one of the audience members, the material doesn't hit on them specifically, whether it be their job or their base knowledge level. You know, a lot of times here we need to ask, who is the audience? Is it a group of seasoned professionals, or are there people in the audience that may be new to the Oracle technology? A lot of times what we find in these classes, though, is a mix of those types of people. So I think sometimes one person maybe gets a little lost because the material is moving too fast, whereas on the other hand, there may be a number of folks that maybe already know the baseline level information and would like to move faster through the curriculum. Another one that we always hear about when we give a traditional training class is a lot of times the training is focused on the core technology, but not necessarily on the applicability of the technology within my specific company. Most clients are using the technology, as we know, to solve one or more specific issues. And what we hear is maybe the term generic comes up quite often. This training is a little more generic than what I was hoping for, or maybe what I was expecting. And so that's one of the comments we hear sometimes with this type of offering. I mentioned earlier about the trainer to trainee ratio. We have found in our research, and this is not just us, but what you see in the marketplace, that anywhere between 12 and 15 class attendees is a desirable number. Anything larger is generally unmanageable from the instructor's perspective. Outside of 15, we need to keep moving, because any diversion from that, we're not going to be able to accomplish the goals within the agenda of the traditional training offering. A couple other points here. Participants may already know this generic content. I mentioned that earlier. And then again, we've got these varying levels of skills and knowledge coming to a traditional class.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point as far as the difference between training on the system and how you use the system. You know, the difference between applying metadata or creating a user or piece of content, and actually what that means to the company's use case and workflow, and how that adds value to the industry. So very, very good stuff there. Now we're going to transition into, you know, the custom training and what is special and unique about Redstone's custom training, because I think there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to custom training, costs, what's the effort level on the customer side, what's the time from purchase to delivery, and is there a way to track results, et cetera. I think there's a lot of unknowns out there that we're going to try to answer for you guys today, and maybe give you some peace of mind when it comes to making this decision and feeling confident in that. And, you know, there's a difference, and we're going to go through this here in the next couple slides, between custom training and custom training for Redstone, and why our services in this niche market here are go above and beyond the industry average. So we're going to talk about, you know, the value prop, what our methodology is, and you know, you always hear project methodologies, agile, waterfall. Something unique to us is we actually have a training methodology. We'll go over the creation of custom curriculum, and then results here towards the end. So, John, what makes Redstone's custom training that much different than our competitors?
You know, I guess I'll just start with our value proposition. In our experience, most companies want custom training, but feel that it is cost prohibitive. We, frankly, just eliminate that concern. We'll customize course material as a component of our standard process. So we try to eliminate that roadblock before it's even asked, And we'll get into the details about how we go about that here in the coming slides.
So what is 3T methodology? 3T methodology is, obviously we have 3 T's here, real creative on the name, but we're software developers, that's what we do. Train, try, and test. These are the 3 pillars that provide our instructors the ability to give a structured, effective, and informative training class to our customers. So John, tell us a little bit more about this first pillar here, train. The demonstration of a specific skill or application, how does that apply to training?
Training is really what our instructor, and this is kind of how the class starts. We are going to work early in the process to actually build the curriculum jointly with our training prospect at that time. The training topics then here, when it's delivered, are discussed and demonstrated by a whole series of labs that we'll take people through, down, frankly, to the line item. So what we're doing, and I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but as we build the curriculum, then the training agenda and class material is created, and then we're working down the agenda, first led by our instructor. So again, we're trying to match what we've built together as we work through, whether it be a 3-day class, a 4-day class, or a 5-day class.
Awesome. And then we're going to get down into trying it ourselves. It's going to be hands-on. We're going to turn the systems on, or we're going to spin up production-grade environments for each of the class participants, and we're going to let them get some hands-on experience with the software under the guidance and instruction of our trainers. Do you want to add anything to that, John, or provide some more information on what it means to try it out in our
I mean, that's really one of the differentiators. We have come to learn over our time in this business that people learn best when they put their hands on the keyboard. So this is an opportunity for them to do just that. The other thing, as a segue, Michael, to something you said, this is important. It gives our instructor or instructors, if we provide more than one, an opportunity to make sure class participants are progressing through the materials. So as people are working through the labs, our instructor or instructors will walk around and make sure people are understanding the topic, are keeping up. We can answer questions that they may have actually during class. So it's an opportunity to interact, but it really more so it's a chance for the class participants to take what was first presented to them by the instructor and actually try it out.
And that's just, the value there is unprecedented. And I'm going to come back and tie into this try aspect of the 3T methodology here on the next slide for custom curriculum. But before we get there, the last piece of this 3T methodology is test. An assessment of knowledge retention. Did your class participants, the people you paid for to attend, your users, the people adding value to your your company, what was the value they got out of it, and did they learn something? So this is by far maybe the most important key, because train and try don't really mean anything unless we test them to find out that they actually retained this knowledge and information.
Yeah, industry statistics say that within a week or two after class, up to as much as 70% of the knowledge that was gained during that, let's say, 5-day class is not retained. So as we continue down the path of this webcast today, you'll see some things that we do which we feel are unique, which help to raise that level of knowledge retention. And then we hold some people accountable to that knowledge and the applicability of that information to their current jobs. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, John mentioned how we, during the training portion of our 3T methodology, how we create this custom curriculum. And during that try area, I wanted to bring up, and like I said, I'd mentioned on this slide, is we're able to adjust curriculum on the fly based on that hands-on experience with the the trainers and getting your hands in the weeds there really allows us to set up curriculum and then adjust it to your needs on the fly, so you get that custom curriculum. And then, like John said, the knowledge retention, if you don't use it within those first couple weeks, you lose it. So we're going to try and definitely make sure that we're teaching you things that you go back to your job and use on day one.
Michael, I'm going to take you back, if you can help me. Can we return back to this slide,
Yes.
the value proposition slide? You talked about a couple things here that I neglected to really point out, which I think are unique beyond what's already been discussed. I think the real value of what we can provide in the custom training space is, and you mentioned it earlier, we date back a number of years with a lot of this technology. So our trainers have years of actual field experience. And what that means is they have interacted day in and day out with these technologies, solving some of our clients' most difficult problems. I wouldn't necessarily say that we're not as much of a professional training organization as we are a system integrator, somebody that gets into the weeds and utilizes the technology. And I think why that's important is we try to answer specific use cases, problems, situations that we have learned over multiple years of using this technology. And so when a hand goes up from the back of the room and they might ask us, a class participant, how we might go about solving this problem, we might actually answer the question during class with 2 or 3 specific use cases, real-world examples of what we've done on projects. And I think that is a different way about answering those questions. A lot of times, we've all been in a class where the instructor, who's a professional trainer, maybe doesn't have that experience, and we'll have to get back to that audience member. And so sometimes that happens, sometimes it does not. A couple other points I think that are pretty important. One of our most common classes, we actually combine materials from what the competitive landscape might offer in 2 separate classes. We do a number of what we call administrator and customization classes. What we found is the competitive landscape might offer an administrator class as one 5-day class, and then a customization class as another 5-day class. And in the curriculum building process, we'll try to ascertain what exactly the client is looking for as it relates to administration and customization skills, and we will combine that into one 5-day class. So our clients then tell us that they receive more value for the training dollar spent. You know, another thing I think that's important is, are you as a class participant acquiring the skills most applicable to your job? One of our core training objectives is to provide knowledge that can be leveraged immediately. And then we're going to follow up on that and talk to the class participants about how they're leveraging the knowledge. Our labs generally address how the class participants utilize the software. We've talked about that quite a bit. That's in opposition to more of a generic class. And I think the other thing that I'd like to point out is we've been delivering our training classes in the cloud since the inception of our company. Michael, you mentioned a little bit about that, but each and every class participant gets their own instance, and those folks then can really enjoy a hands-on experience.
Great. Definitely. After hearing all that, I'm glad we went back and touched base and covered some of that additional information. One of the things you talked about when we went back to that slide was feedback from the class participants and how we follow up with them. So one of the ways we do that is the self-memo. So now we're getting, if you remember and can call back to the agenda we had set out, we were going to set the stage, then go into some custom training, and then we talked about providing some results and how we achieve those. Self-memo is one of the ways in which we do that. So at the beginning of class, participants are given the opportunity to provide us feedback on 3 skills they'd like to acquire. And this is how we sort of customize curriculum on the fly to make sure that they're getting taught things that they're going to go back and use day one on the job after training. And then we follow up with them 6 weeks later to see did they learn the 3 skills they wanted to, have they been using them, and how that's worked out.
You know, that does keep people engaged. The self-memo and the things that we ask of these people during day one of class really is the first thing that we do. Our instructors then attempt to address these things during our time together. You know, generally, if we've done a good job in the curriculum building process, there will not be any surprises. But I think one of the other value propositions is if, in fact, there is a surprise, if there is something that a class participant wants to learn, we generally make every effort to go over that at least at a high level during our time together. And our hope there is we're actually providing more value and really meeting the needs of any one specific class participant. And then, as Michael said, we try to follow up. It's kind of on our calendar to follow up with each class participant to check in. You know, we've talked about this. This is a commitment that we've put in writing, and we really follow up with them to say, are you using what, in fact, you learned and what you wrote on day one of class?
Yeah, and make a call back to the midway point when we went over the custom training, and I said something along the lines of there's custom training and then there's Redstone custom training. And I think this customized curriculum, there might be some people out there doing that today. But as far as an organization with trainers and instructors competent enough and confident enough to adjust curriculum on the fly based on questions, based on self-memos, I think that's a pretty gutsy call, and it's a call that we've done in the past, we're still doing today, and will continue to do because we're capable of it, and it provides a lot of value to the customers at the end of the day, and that's why we're doing it. That's why any business is in business for our customers. And, you know, to continue on with that is using your system, your WebCenter instance better somewhere down the line affects and impacts your customers in a positive way. So now we're going to go on to the second portion of how we track results and gauge the effectiveness of our training, and that is through the training survey. And this is something we've been doing for the last 6 years since our inception. We do it every year. We release the results after our last training course sometime in December, and then we go over these results, and we have some questions here we're going to go over with you. We have questions for curriculum, the material, the content of the course, but also the instructor themselves, because we want to make sure not just the material, but the way it's delivered by the instructor is up to par and to your standards.
You know, just a point here, Michael, with average survey response rates in the industry as low as 5%, we can't have that. We have committed to delivering a class whereby we get 100% response rates. As a matter of fact, any class of any duration does not end until all survey results are completed. We strongly encourage that, and we get the feedback that's desired because people have paid money for these classes, and we want to make sure that the results that are being delivered is what the people have asked for. And so we need that feedback, and we want to address those things during class.
Yeah, and, you know, some of the things we've said, you might have thought to yourself, well, how could they possibly know that? And I think it comes down to these survey questions. Relevancy of the material to my current job. Potential to apply this new knowledge immediately. Clarity of the information. That's how we're able to gauge, you know, if we're hitting the mark and providing that value there. And then here we have some of the instructor questions. Was the instructor effective in delivering that message? Would you recommend us to a friend or coworker, colleague? And then, you know, what was your overall rating of the instructor? So to show you a detailed survey results from 2015, you can see all the questions I just covered briefly, curriculums on top, instructors on bottom, and we have a 4-tier rating scale: poor, average, good, and excellent. And I think the numbers speak for themselves, so we'll continue to talk a little bit in the background here while you have a chance to really review these results. In 2015, the courses we provided to customers were primarily in WebCenter sites and WebCenter content areas for contributors, administrators, your developers, and like John mentioned earlier, a combination of courses. And this is just a high-level overview of the courses we provided, but we also provided some other forms of training last year in 2015 as well.
A couple points I'd like to interject, Michael. I mentioned earlier that a lot of times we bring maybe more than one instructor. And we've been asked many times why we would do that. A couple reasons. One, we've got the opportunity to give the instructor a break. If the topic is very detailed, there's nothing wrong with providing our instructor, our core instructor, a break for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. You know, another reason we might do this is we are teaching a class on newer material. Earlier this year, we believe we were the first company in 2016 to bring what we call a combination class. It was a WebCenter Sites 12C administration and developer class. And we actually brought 2 instructors because that information was new and it was new to our instructors. So we felt like that was an investment we would make so that we could cover all material that the client wanted to learn. And the last reason we might do something like this is because the class participant count may be higher. If we had a 6-person class, there might be only a need to bring 1 instructor. But if there was a 15-person class, we talked about this from the train, try, test perspective. If we had a couple people walking around during the try element of our methodology, we can address more people's questions in a shorter amount of time.
Now, when we bring additional instructors to the table, is that something we provide at no cost to the customer?
Most often that is the case. It depends, but generally that is something that we do and would provide at no additional cost. One of the other points I wanted to make, and this class is not up there, interestingly enough, we've been talking a lot about the DX, the digital experience or WebCenter solutions. Interestingly enough, we just created a class this year that I think the audience might be interested. These are the build and development tools that support a WebCenter sites implementation. So specifically, this particular client is utilizing tools like Gulp, Gradle, Maven, and Git. So we built a custom training class to address those specific needs. We were talking to them about the basics, the resources, the plugins, the build lifecycle, dependency management. I'm looking right now at their custom curriculum, and I'm just reading off some of the bullet points that were a part of the class. Publishing, Gradle integration, terms, branching and merging, and that type of thing. So that's just the level of depth and detail that we will go in when developing an agenda.
And we're starting to wrap things up here. This is our last slide before we get to the special offer and the Q&A. I mentioned we've been doing this survey over the last 6 years, so I showed you 2015 on the previous slide. But when it comes to overall curriculum rating and overall training rating, here are our results. So you can see that we're always in the 90s. Some years we get some perfect scores, but really just that consistent year after year value that we provide.
One other point I'd like to bring, Generally somebody has paid for this engagement. It may in fact be the person that coordinated getting the information put together for the agenda or approved the proposal. One of the things that we also do is the final tallied results of the training survey is always sent to the person that coordinated the training engagement on behalf of the customer. And a lot of times it's also sent to their immediate supervisor if appropriate. So people want to know that the money they spent and the time they spent, because time is money. If it's a 5-day class and there's 6 people in this class, they're going to be offline, at least in part, for that period of time. What's the value that we have gotten out of this class?
Great. So now the special offer, and I'm going to bring this up because I forgot to mention it during the introduction, but our staff will work with attendees and registered attendees to receive their Starbucks gift card. During the registration process, you had to sign up, provide your address. We'll confirm that address with you and send that out later this week. As for our special offer, we will build one custom curriculum for registered attendees at no cost. You can get this special offer by filling out the form at the link there shown on the screen. You can also email us or call us at the numbers listed below. Did you have anything to add to that, John?
The only thing I wanted to add to that is I wondered if now was the appropriate time to start to handle any questions that may have come to us, Michael, from the audience members. I know I've seen a couple come through. Is it time to move to that segment of the webcast?
Yes. We will move towards questions. I have a couple here right off the bat that were given throughout the presentation today. But if you have not submitted a question and you have one now, you can submit that via the chat to Redstone _meeting host, and that'll come right to us. So the first question we have today is, in a given year, how many companies and or employees would you say you train?
That's a very good question. We get that often. It depends on the year. It depends on if there is, for example, a new version of the product that comes out, whether that be a minor version release or a major version release. I guess I would conservatively say that we train in the hundreds on average each and every year.
Great. And here's another one. We sort of touched on this, but I'll bring it up and ask it anyway since somebody took the time to type it in. I'm often frustrated that we cannot find training on the most current version. Typically, Oracle's traditional training seems to be a version behind. How do you guys handle adapting to the latest versions of training? And I think John touched on that earlier as far as the WebCenter 12C training that we sent out. A couple instructors did some admin and end user training all at once, and really tried to get everybody up to speed on that. Do you have anything to add to that from our earlier discussion on that?
Yeah, I think some of that is that's the value of working with somebody that is a systems integrator and potentially a value-added reseller, is our clients may in fact be deploying the latest and greatest version of the technology. So we have got to come to the table with knowledge of that by virtue of perhaps an implementation, a customization, a migration from a previous version. So we've got to learn that information ourselves anyways. So why don't we just construct some base level information that then we can work with a client in time to customize to meet their specific needs. It's a professional goal of ours to come to the table with the latest and greatest version of material before the competitive landscape.
Then the next question we have is, are trainers employees or contractors? I can answer this one quickly. Our trainers are employees. Like we said, they have real-world application. They implement and use the software. along with training the software to other users. So yes, they are employees of Redstone. Another question, where is Redstone located? We're located in the Midwest. Typically, we don't do training on-site at our location, but we do training on-site at your location. So our location, yeah, I appreciate you asking where we're from, but we like to come on-site and provide you training where you're most comfortable. In the past, we have often found training centers near your headquarters, for example, if you don't want the training to be on-site. In instances like that, sometimes if it's traditional training, you can have multiple companies at an event like that. But for customized training, we like to come on-site at your company's location.
And generally why we do that is through feedback we've gathered over the last several years. A couple things. One, people aren't as willing to send employees to various different locations around the country. Travel and expense costs have been reduced at certain points in time over the course of the last several years. And depending on what industry you're in, you may be feeling some of that pain right now. So if we just bring one instructor on site to your location, your folks do not, in fact, have to travel to wherever they're going. Another important thing that we have heard from our clients is management generally is okay. If they're going to make the investment in this training, they actually want people to be in class. Now, maybe it's a 3-day class or a 4-day class. That is a commitment, but it is a focused commitment. A lot of times when you're taking online training, that isn't the case. You may be still trying to do your job while also have one eye pay attention to the material. So the results have shown over the years that people have retained that information at a higher level when an instructor comes on site.
Great. I think that wraps up the questions we had submitted via the chat. As a reminder, we will be contacting you for delivering the Starbucks gift card. We appreciate you showing up today. We have recorded this webcast, so we will also follow up with you and send you a link to it once it's hosted on our website, along with the Q&A, the slide deck, and a transcript for you to maybe search for keywords that you'll want to recall back to. So once again, thanks for coming. Redstone Content Solutions, from all of us here, we appreciate it and look forward to having you in our classroom. Thank you.
Bye-bye.